There is one earthquake on this planet that scientists describe as the most anticipated in human history. It has a name. It has an official magnitude, 9.1. It has a government casualty projection, up to 298,000 dead. It has a price tag, nearly 300 trillion yen, one of the largest disaster estimates ever calculated. And it has a probability that keeps climbing. Japan's own Earthquake Research Committee now puts the odds of it striking within 30 years at somewhere between 60% and as high as 94.5%, or higher. This is not a fringe theory. This is not internet doom-mongering. This is the official position of the most earthquake-experienced nation on Earth, about a 500-mile scar in the Pacific seafloor called the Nankai Trough. Geologists have called it the original definition of the big one. And in August 2024, for the first time in history, Japan's government pressed a button it had never pressed before, a nationwide megaquake advisory, because for 1 week, they believed it might be starting. Stay with me until the end, because the story of this fault is written in 14 centuries of records. It runs on something disturbingly close to a schedule, and the schedule says we are deep inside the window. To understand the Nankai Trough, look at a map of Japan and trace the Pacific coastline southwest from Tokyo, past Shizuoka, past Nagoya, past Osaka, down along the island of Shikoku to the southern tip of Kyushu. Just offshore, running parallel to that entire coastline for roughly 500 miles, the seafloor drops into a deep undersea trench. That trench is the surface expression of a collision. The Philippine sea plate, a slab of ocean floor, is diving beneath the continental plate that Japan sits on, creeping downward a few centimeters every year. And just like at every great subduction zone, the plates do not slide smoothly. They stick. The upper plate gets dragged down and compressed, bending like a drawn bow, storing energy year after year, decade after decade. When the lock finally breaks, the entire coastal seafloor snaps upward in seconds, releasing centuries of accumulated strain as a mega-thrust earthquake and hurling the ocean above it into a tsunami. This is the same mechanism that produced the 2011 Tohoku disaster on Japan's northeast coast. The magnitude 9 that sent 10-story waves over seawalls, killed more than 20,000 people, and crippled the Fukushima nuclear plant. The Nankai Trough is Tohoku's southern twin, except it points at the industrial heart of Japan. Here's what makes Nankai unique among all the dangerous faults on Earth. We have its diary. Japan is a civilization that has been writing things down for 1,400 years, and the Nankai Trough has been tearing itself open, on record, again and again, since the year 684. At least 9 megaquakes, documented by monks, court officials, and village record keepers across the centuries. And when scientists laid those records out on a timeline, they found something that looks less like random chaos and more like clockwork. The trough ruptures roughly every 100 to 150 years. Not randomly. Rhythmically. The plates load at a steady rate, and they break at a semi-regular interval. Few faults on Earth have a documented heartbeat like this one, and the diary contains warnings that read like prophecy. In 1707, the Hoei earthquake ruptured nearly the entire trough at once, one of the largest earthquakes in Japanese history, with a tsunami that devastated the Pacific coastline. And then, 49 days later, Mount Fuji erupted, its last eruption to this day. The earthquake was so massive that many scientists believe it disturbed the magma system of Japan's most iconic volcano. One fault, capable of shaking a volcano awake. In 1854, the trough ruptured again, but this time in a terrifying new pattern, 2 colossal earthquakes, 1 day apart. The eastern half of the fault broke first, and roughly 32 hours later, the western half followed. 2 magnitude 8 class disasters in barely more than a day. And then, most recently, December 1944, when the eastern segment ruptured in the middle of World War II. And just 2 years later, in December 1946, the western segment followed with a magnitude 8 that killed more than 1,300 people. Do you see the pattern the seismologists see? This fault often doesn't break once. It breaks in pairs. One half goes, and the other half follows, in hours, days, or a couple of years. Which means the first great Nankai earthquake may not be the end of the disaster. It may be the starting gun for the second one. Count the years now. The last Nankai rupture was 1946. That is 80 years ago. Inside a cycle that historically runs 100 to 150 years. Japanese officials state it plainly. With every passing year, the probability rises by roughly 1%. The bow has been drawing for 8 decades. And that is why, when Japan's government drew up its official worst-case scenario, they didn't model a magnitude 8. They modeled a 9.1, a rupture of the entire trough at once, Hoei style, in the modern era. Let me walk you through what that scenario actually says, because the numbers are almost impossible to hold in your mind. Violent shaking. The maximum level on Japan's intensity scale. Striking simultaneously across a corridor from Shizuoka, just 90 miles from Tokyo, all the way to Miyazaki in the southwest. A swath containing Nagoya, Osaka, and the industrial spine of the world's fourth largest economy. Then, within minutes, not hours, minutes, the tsunami. Government modeling shows waves reaching up to 30 meters, around 100 feet, on the closest coastlines, with major waves striking densely populated shores of Honshu and Shikoku almost immediately after the shaking stops. Some coastal towns would have less time to evacuate than it takes to watch this video. The updated official projection, released in 2025, as many as 298,000 deaths in the worst case, up to 9.5 million people displaced. Economic damage estimated at 292 trillion yen, a figure so large that some analysts describe it as an event that would reshape the global economy. Because remember what sits in that impact zone: the factories, ports, and supply chains that produce the world's cars, machine tools, semiconductors, components, and electronics. A full Nankai rupture is not a Japanese disaster. It is a planetary economic event with a Japanese epicenter. Now let me take you to the week when Japan thought it might be beginning, August 8th, 2024. A magnitude 7.1 earthquake strikes off Kyushu, at the western edge of the Nankai Trough system. Within hours, the Japan Meteorological Agency does something it has never done in its history. It issues the first ever Nankai Trough Megaquake advisory. The reasoning was cold statistics. Based on global earthquake data, when a magnitude 7 strikes near a great fault, the chance of a magnitude 8 or larger following within a week jumps to roughly 1 in 100, many times higher than normal. 1 in 100 may sound small. But when the stakes are a 9.1 with 300,000 projected deaths, 1 in 100 is enough to move a nation. The Prime Minister canceled his diplomatic tour of Central Asia and stayed home. Bullet trains slowed down along coastal routes. Municipalities across western and central Japan reviewed evacuation plans. Store shelves emptied of water and emergency rice as millions of families quietly checked their go-bags. For 7 days, the third largest economy on Earth held its breath and watched the seismographs. The megaquake did not come. On August 15th, the advisory was lifted and life resumed. But something permanent had changed. The Nankai threat had moved from textbooks into lived national experience. Japan had rehearsed the first week of the big one, for real. And then the scientists did something that, if anything, is more unsettling than a warning. They admitted how uncertain they really are. In their latest assessments, Japan's Earthquake Research Committee revised the 30-year probability, and instead of a single tidy number, they published a range. Approximately 60% to 94.5% or higher, calculated with an updated method that accounts for flaws discovered in historical ground uplift data. And alongside it, for the first time ever, they published a second competing figure, 20 to 50%, derived from the standard model used for other faults. 2 official probabilities for the same earthquake. Critics saw confusion. But listen to what the committee itself said, because it cuts through everything. Whatever the exact number, the earthquake could occur at any time. The head of the panel put it in one sentence. It may be more than 30 years away, or it may come within a year. That is the honest state of earthquake science. Nobody on Earth can tell you the date. What they can tell you is that the strain is real. It has been accumulating since 1946. The historical rhythm is real, and every credible model, every single one, puts this event well within the lifetime of most people watching this video. But here is the part of this story that should give you something other than dread. Because Japan is not waiting to be a victim. No nation in history has prepared for a disaster the way Japan is preparing for this one. 707 municipalities across 29 prefectures are officially designated countermeasure zones. The national goal, set in law, cut the projected death toll by 80%, from 300,000 to tens of thousands, through seawalls, evacuation towers, relocated schools, earthquake-proofed buildings, and relentless drills. Japan's earthquake early warning system, the world's most advanced, can detect the first fast-moving waves of a rupture and broadcast alerts to every phone in the country seconds to tens of seconds before the destructive shaking arrives, enough to stop trains, halt surgeries, open fire station doors, and drop factory lines. And in 2026, the government is standing up an entirely new disaster prevention agency, built in large part around this single scenario. The people of the Nankai coast drill for the 30-meter wave the way other countries drill for fire. Children in Kochi and Shizuoka can tell you their evacuation route by heart. Because after 2011, Japan learned the lesson written in 20,000 deaths. The earthquake is not optional. The casualties are. And that is the real meaning of the phrase closer than you think. Not that the 9.1 strikes tomorrow. No one knows that, and anyone who claims to is lying. It is closer than you think because 80 of the cycle's 100-odd years have already elapsed. Because the probability quietly climbs another % with every calendar page. Because the fault has a documented habit of striking in pairs, meaning the crisis, when it comes, may come twice. Because in August 2024, the countdown scenario stopped being theoretical for an entire nation for 1 week. And because the scientists who know this fault better than anyone on Earth, the inheritors of 1,400 years of records, have stopped debating whether and now debate only when and how many will be standing when the water recedes. Somewhere beneath the Pacific, off the coast of Japan, the Philippine sea plate moved another fraction of a millimeter tonight. The bow drew a little tighter, as it has every night since December 1946. 9 times in recorded history, this fault has broken its silence. The 10th time is already loaded into the rock. Japan is racing to be ready for it. The only question the greatest earthquake scientists on Earth cannot answer is the only one that matters. How much time is left on a clock that has already run for 80 years? If this video showed you why the world's seismologists watch this one stretch of ocean above all others, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because when the Nankai Trough so much as twitches, and history says it will, we'll break down exactly what happened and what it means within hours. And tell me in the comments. Did you know the most anticipated earthquake on Earth already has an official death toll projection? What surprised you most? I read every comment. Stay alert, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next one.